it going. And like I said, we have a lot to get into this show. The New York Metropolitans play games that matter very, very soon. Not Thursday. It starts this Friday at 1:40 p.m. Eastern. To everyone that's in attendance for that game, make sure to let me know down below. But before we get into it all, before we get into player predictions, breaking all these different types of things down, over-unders, looking at the Mets roster construction, Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. I'm glad we were able to get through this portion of trying to get the show on the air. It was a lot of work trying to troubleshoot. If anyone knows how it is behind the scenes of to do these things, but we got it. We're good now. And very excited to be talking about official Mets baseball now because the Mets season gets underway Friday. I'll be there for opening day. I'm very excited about that.
Yes, as you should be. I know we got a lot of amazing followers here on WardyNYM that'll be in attendance to opening day. Officially now this Friday, not this Thursday after the unfortunate rain. I mean, the Mets, I feel like, literally planned this. It's been now 4 straight years where the Mets opening day isn't on the Mets opening day when it's supposed to be in any which way, shape, or form, at least. And now, as a surprise, absolutely nobody, it's because of, yes, the weather. Now, my question to you, Ant, is this something you look at the off day the Mets had for Friday, which is why they're able to so comfortably push from Thursday to Friday? My question to you is, do you think the Mets will ever consider a retractable roof? Because as things currently stand, Steve Cohen says no.
Yeah, I'm with Steve. I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's too expensive at this point in time. Like, I don't even know how you get it up there. I mean, I guess you can try the way they did at the tennis center, which was really without a roof until they put the retractable roof up there. But I don't know the way the dimensions are with City Field. I don't know how they would kind of make that work. It's not really a like circular or has an area. Maybe it'll just come over like Seattle does. I don't know, but they could try. I would love them to try to do that because I'm tired of these rainouts. But it might just cost too much money at this point, and he's working on other projects around the City Field area.
He is working on other projects around the City Field area that many of you guys and gals know by now. Of course, the Metropolitan Park that they're building in that entire area is very exciting. So we will soon find out, hopefully, over the next coming years, as they are already starting to build all these things, how it's going to pan out. Now we got the thumbnail on YouTube too. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling comfortable. So now let's talk about this stuff, everybody. I see a lot of familiar faces in the live chat on YouTube. I see Sergio Soto, Kish, how you doing? Great members. Ruby, Oliver, Scott, Danny, everyone, Dave, my absolute beauty of a friend, how you doing? Mike, Rick, everyone that's watching on Twitter as well. Make sure to hit that follow button for both myself at WardyNYM and Anthony at the Subway to Shape podcast, where you can check out wherever you get your Mets podcast. Anthony's going to be coming out with consistent content all throughout the season, as will I. You'll be seeing plenty of him on the channel this season too, so be on the lookout for that exciting little announcement that will be coming shortly. But in the meantime, Anthony, before we get into anything, I just got to ask you, when you think about the Mets season beginning, you think about opening day, what are your initial feelings heading into this regular season before we get down into the Mets roster and all the little details I'm sure a lot of people are going to love to hear?
I think there's always a level of excitement, no matter where they are in the status of the division and the outlook of the team. I think there's always a little bit of excitement getting into opening day. This is my second opening day officially going to City Field. And it's just fun, man. It's a different experience. A lot of times we don't even get to go to the playoffs. This is kind of like a playoff atmosphere for, opening day. And you get to see the lineup, and it's just an enjoyable time. Whoever goes out there, even just watching it at home. So I'm very excited to go out there to City Field and see these guys play. And the expectations of the team are just kind of like calm right now, which is a little bit different from what we're used to. It's either, doom and gloom or, World Series bound. But right now we're just like kind of in the middle, that we had such a calm spring that I kind of enjoyed it almost.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. And I'll say this, at least for me as a young baseball fan, my excitement level varies year to year when it comes to opening day. Of course, it goes in hand with what the Mets did or lack thereof in the offseason, right? And I know that in many ways our fans slightly underwhelmed heading into the year. I got to be honest, I'm pretty pumped up. I'm really excited. Honestly, this is probably some of the more calm, cool, and collected I've been in years past, but I love the feeling, especially after the JD Martinez signing. I know Monty, of course, signed with the D-backs yesterday, 1 year, $25 million. He didn't want to come to New York. We know that, and I discussed that on Bleacher Report yesterday. Make sure to check it out if you guys and gals haven't already. I'm doing a lot of work with them lately, including my list of the best player for each MLB position for the regular season. A lot of controversy with that one too. A lot of Yanks fans couldn't grasp the concept of an unhealthy Garrett Cole to start the year, which is why I went with Zach Wheeler. Make sure to check that all out too if you guys haven't already. But yeah, and I'm really excited about opening day. I'm not only excited to see the boys back on the field, I'm excited to be at Citi Field sooner than later. Do not believe I will be attending the series as of now, unfortunately. That might be something that changes last minute for Friday, but as things currently stand, I will not be there because I'll be covering everything to an absolute T while you guys are out there having an absolute blast for opening day. So, and you said this is your second time attending opening day. Do you have any key moments from Mets games that you personally been in attendance of, whether it's opening day in the past or just games in general? Like if you have a key moment or two to emphasize, and then we will get on with the show. I would love to hear it.
Well, definitely that first opening day I went to, I think it was like Johan Santana, one of his final starts. I think it was like 2013. Wright hit a home run in that game, and it's just like that's when the stadium is like fully packed. Besides that, you got playoff games. Like I've been to the DeGrom final start in 2022. That was an awesome moment, as well as Benny Agbayani's game-winning home run against the Giants in 2000. So you got moments like that, as well as when both teams are good, when both the Yankees and Mets are good. Subway Series, and that's a crazy atmosphere to be around.
Oh, absolutely. Subway Series are honestly some of the games I look forward to most because, yes, Yanks fans are going to be the first to say, oh, this is your World Series. I'm like, it's not, but it's an awesome atmosphere. Citi Field,
Yeah.
I mean, personally, between the two, as someone who obviously has a Mets bias, I think it's been tremendous when it's at Citi Field. Just a couple years ago, we think about the 3 bombs by Lindor going toe-to-toe with Stanton. Then in 2022, I was in attendance. Max Scherzer striking out Aaron Judge not once, not twice, but 3 times, and Starling Marte with the walk-off hit. There's been a lot of electric moments that we have seen come from the Subway Series. So out of all my personal Mets experiences, I definitely have that up there too, especially when it's a back-and-forth entertaining game. You simply cannot go wrong. So love to hear that from you, Ann. And now to everyone watching the show, let's dive into this one. Let's look at the season preview. And you know what, Ant? Let's start by just talking about the Mets opening day roster, right? There's one decision that's basically been a toss-up to this point that we have yet to hear an official word about, as long as my memory is mistaken, regarding who gets the final bullpen spots. But Sean Reed-Foley, have we heard an announcement with him yet? Is he going to be optioned in the minors, or is he still in the mix?
The only announcement that Mendy made, Carlos Mendoza, is that DJ Stewart is on the roster. There's been no talks, at least from what I've seen recently on X or Twitter or social media, that the bullpen spots have been made. So there's 3 of them still available: Sean Reed-Foley, Michael Tonkin, and Johan Ramirez.
Okay, see, exactly what I was thinking. So, as we know, DJ Stewart did crack the Mets team. This was initially in a loop. They were trying to figure out if they were going to acquire someone externally, like a Jordan Montgomery, that the Mets are active with to a degree, like a potential waiver wire pickup, because as we know, there's some talented players that are going to be cut loose, not because they're not talented, but because teams have tough decisions to make, as David Stern said it himself, which went in hand with guys like Shintaro Fujinami being sent down, taking advantage of the minor league option he has. Excited to see what he can do to start the year in Syracuse. I don't think it's going to take him terribly long to get back to the bigs. The guy's stuff is too good. It's just about, again, putting it together. But then you look at other options now, especially in the case of DJ Stewart, who didn't do anything to overly impress this spring, but given that JD Martinez will start the first 10 days in the minor leagues, the Mets are going to need to give guys at bats at the DH position, and they rather give it to potentially someone like a DJ Stewart and at times Starling Marte versus, say, keeping Mark Vientos on the roster, knowing for certain he's going to be sent down once JDM is called upon. You want to make sure the kids have consistent reps. I understand that. And in the case of DJ Stewart, a guy that I do believe is on the outside looking in for this roster as soon as JD Martinez returns, barring injury. But bullpen-wise, that's the interesting one because Michael Tonkin, Johan Ramirez, and Sean Reed-Foley have all had very impressive springs for the most part. SRF's the last outing out there. He allowed a couple runs and not even a full inning, so I think that doesn't help his cause per se. He had a very calm, cool, and collected attitude too when asked about his future, and said, it doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Like, I'm fine either way. They know who I am. They know what I can provide. And he has a confidence level in himself, which which is great. But I think with what we've seen with Johan Ramirez, who's been tremendous as a pickup for a bag of baseballs from the White Sox this offseason, and Michael Tonkin, who ate right around 90 innings comfortably there for the Atlanta Braves last year as a veteran right-hander that, again, can eat multi-innings for you every time out there. Those are the guys I'd imagine will still be leading the way and cracking the bullpen in the end. So until we find out official word, I'm going to go with the assumption that Michael Tonkin and Johan Ramirez have made this Mets bullpen and that Sean Reed-Foley did not, and he will have a chance to be picked up by a team elsewhere through waivers. If not, he'll then be sent outright to AAA. Would you agree or disagree with that potential assessment?
No, 100% agree. I think that it's going to be Tonkin. I think it's going to be Ramirez. And I talked about this on the Subway to Shea podcast when I had the WFAN's Lori Rubinson, and we talked
Awesome.
about the history for Sean Reed-Foley of his injuries. And we've just seen it. He's been on the team since 2021, and he has never been able to kind of fully put it together into a full season, whether he was in the bullpen or he got a couple of starts. There's always been some injury that's come afterwards. So I'm willing to risk putting him on waivers to give new bread some chance, like Ramirez and Tonkin, and seeing what they can do, because we know what Sean Reed-Foley is. We know he has the talent, but the thing is, can he stay healthy? And if he can't, now you're losing someone else. Whereas if you put Sean Reed-Foley on the waivers, if no one picks him up, he goes right back to AAA, and it's like we didn't lose him. But yeah, I'm with you. Michael Tonkin, Johan Ramirez.
Michael Tonkin and Johan Ramirez it is. Let us know in the live chat too if you guys and gals agree or disagree with that. If you think SRF is more deserving. Personally, again, Ramirez is a guy that has lively stuff, a young, exciting arm in the Mets bullpen now. And in the case of Michael Tonkin, he did what he did with the Atlanta Braves last year. He's a crafty righty. I like a lot about his game, especially as a guy that can come in to eat multiple innings for you. And we know David Stearns has put a real heavy emphasis on differences in whether it's pitch shapes or arm slots, really trying to make sure there isn't much repetition in the Mets bullpen and pitching staff as a whole, which is also why, as long as he stays in the organization, I do think Sean Reed-Foley will be a positive impact on this Mets bullpen at points this year as a mid to potentially long reliever that they may utilize at times. He can eat plenty of innings for you. His stature, his pitch shape, a lot of about his release points are different than what you see with other relievers too. We all know he's known for a very specific stance in SRF, so I'm excited to see what his future holds should it be in the organization, and if he is in fact picked up elsewhere in the assumption that he is the one on the outside looking in, then I wish him all the best wherever he may land. But speaking of the bullpen, let's stay on that topic for a second, right? Because there are a lot of interesting arms in this pen, and as we take a look at the Mets roster as a whole, I'm going to just list it for all you people, what is happening in each of these respective positions. Then from there, we'll look at the rotation, the bullpen, the position players, the batters. We'll go over our predictions, our overall thoughts, over-unders on some of these, and then we'll wrap things up by getting into over and unders on the Mets wins, playoffs, and ultimately our most ideal, the best lineup that the Mets can have for the 2024 season. But with the bullpen, of course, we got Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, Brooks Raley, Drew Smith, Jake Diekman, Jorge Lopez, Michael Tonkin, Johan Ramirez, as I mentioned, and then you got Sean Reed-Foley and Sean Reed-Foley and Shintaro Fujinami, like on the outside looking in, those types. When we look at the starting rotation, Jose Quintana, Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, Tyler McGill, and then from there, Kodai Senga, who was back throwing today, which is very exciting. We saw him throwing in Citi Field as he begins his ramp up to hopefully be back on the mound for the Amazons, hopefully in the next month and a half, however long it may take. I just cannot wait to see Kodai Senga carving up batters with that patented ghost fork this year, especially throughout the summer, where he was an absolute beauty for the team as we got to the mid and then second half of the season. Of course, you got guys like Jose Buto, Joey Lucchesi just knocking on the door. Jose Buto will be the next man called up for the Mets and could come as soon as mid-April, where they may need themselves an extra arm. So Buto had a phenomenal spring, lost the final rotation spot job to Tyler McGill, who had a little bit of an up and down spring, but looked exciting with his new sweeper that he has in his arsenal. Basically the American sport, if you will, I should say, rather. There's been some interesting early information that we found on that pitches, the swing and miss rate, the whiff percentage, and the Mets are rolling with him as pretty much their number 3 starter to begin the season, how the rotations is configured with how the Mets schedule is too. So that's what you get from the starters. And then on the outside looking in, guys that will likely impact the Mets at some point this season that we'll talk about later in the show: Christian Scott, Mike Vassell, Tyler Stewart, potentially, all the way down on the bottom. Those are guys to consider. Then we have, of course, the DH position. When he's healthy, when he's in the lineup, JD Martinez will be the Mets DH right behind Pete Alonso more often than not this season. Outfielder-wise, we, of course, have Starling Marte, Tyrone Taylor, Harrison Bader, Brandon Nimmo, and DJ Stewart. DJ Stewart is the Mets' 5th option for the outfield, and that goes in part with why I expect him to be sent down pretty much as soon as the Mets are able to, with JD Martinez arriving back with the club in 10 days or so. First base, Pete Alonso, we know what we're getting there. Jeff McNeil at second base. Shortstop, Francisco Lindor. Brett the Met at third base, coming off of a strong sprain. Hopefully he continues that, as he will be the Mets' starting third baseman to begin the year. Zach Short, who will be on the bench, a righty bat option who had a tremendous sprain. A diehard Mets fan growing up. Cracked the Mets roster as well around the same time that unfortunately a relative of his passed away. A whirlwind of emotions, but something he's very excited about. And Zach Short, who had not only great defense, but bat to ball skills. Hit a grand slam against the Detroit Tigers. Hit for a good clip that we saw in spring. I'm excited to see what he can do as a nice utility infield option for the Mets off the bench. Joey Wendell, in his limited sample size, looked very good too that we saw. And then you get, of course, I don't think I missed on anyone aside from Francisco Alvarez, and Omar Narvaez will take up the backstop position. Francisco Alvarez is going to do tremendous things for the Amazons this year. I'm unbelievably high on him, and I hope you guys and gals are too. So, Ant, as we looked at that roster as a whole, that configuration, is there anything that you have a gripe about personally that you think that there should be proper debates, whether it comes to the bench with the current configuration the Mets have, or the actual roster, the guys that will be starting on opening day?
I don't think so. I think if I was gonna have a gripe, it would have been with, Brett Beatty at third, but there's really no one that can come in and be a starting third baseman. It's not Mark Vientos. Obviously Wendell and Short will probably be backing him up. So I'm fine with Beatty, and Beatty got screwed last year anyway. He earned and deserved that third base job out of spring training, and that, I'm pretty sure that messed with his psyche for the rest of the season. Everything looks good to me. I actually thought that maybe G-Man Choi would have made
Agreed.
the roster. Yep. Because, you mentioned DJ Stewart, another outfielder. There needs to be someone, and I know it's only 2 weeks maybe, but I thought someone would be kind of backing up Pete Alonso to play first base or something. And G-Man Choi can do that. He's got pop. He played better than DJ Stewart. DJ Stewart has an option. So I thought that they would have gone that route. But everything else, I think, looks good. Zach Short, he also earned his spot onto this roster. I'd love him to become some sort of Joe McEwing type player, utility guy. So we'll see what he has going forward. And then with the pitching, I think everyone had earned their spot. They all pitched so well this spring. Even Tyler McGill to a certain extent. Maybe Jose Butto pitched better, but I think when you look at the two of them, you just look at how more experienced, and he's more experienced, Tyler McGill is pitching for this roster. And we'll see Jose Butto, like you said, at some point.
Yes, Jose Butto is a guy that a lot of Mets fans, I hope you're paying attention to if you haven't already, because I really think he's going to have quite the impact on the Mets this year as either a starter or potentially a multi-aim reliever. This guy's stuff's good. It looked good last year in his limited sample size with the Mets, too. I thought Jose Butto was one of the few bright spots for the Mets last year, honestly. And, as long as he gets that command down with his walk rate, there's a lot to like about Jose Butto, and he's one of those guys I think is going to surprise plenty of people this year. If you want to throw in a surprise segment, guys you think are going to surprise a lot of fans this year, Jose Butto is a part of that mix, in my opinion. So, yep, I agree with you there. And, yeah, not much gripes I have either. I got to say, for a David Stern ran Mets, that what the offseason started, everyone was crying, saying this guy is a schmuck, he has no clue what he's doing. Haven't heard much crying anymore. It's almost like you shouldn't jump the gun. It's almost like I have told how many of you people watching right now, all offseason long, to pump the breaks. Oh, Michael Tonkin, he's a nobody. Oh, Jorge Lopez, he's a nobody. Oh, Jake Diekman, he's a nobody. Oh, all these guys, they mean nothing. You say that while the Mets are going to go on to have a top 5 bullpen this year. You say that as they're going to be elite defensively. You say that as JD Martinez is going to hit over 20 bombs for them this year. Like, this is what I will say. I can understand frustration with the fans that, again, just want to see a championship. They've been through it for a while. I get that. But it's also the fans that just think they know the right decision regarding everything when you just hired a man who, one, grew up a diehard Mets fan, and two, has one of the best resumes for his age in Major League Baseball. This was deemed as the biggest hire for a front office since Friedman was hired by the Dodgers. That's a universal thing that's been known according to various rival executives in baseball in the NL East, whether it's the Braves, the Phillies, or whoever. They know how smart and savvy David Stearns is. So I'm again really excited to see what David is going to do with the Mets as the course of the year goes on, the bullpen configuration. But ultimately, this roster I think is going to surprise plenty of people, and that's why, as I've been telling a lot of you guys, for the people saying should we go over and under on wins, I think you absolutely have to hammer the over there. So before we get into a bit more on the rotation, the batters, and the bullpen, and let me just ask you this straight up, right? Shout out to our amazing sponsor on the channel at BetUS, who has you covered all your sports betting needs. We're going to be doing a lot of awesome, unique WardyNYM props and parlays every single game for the most part throughout the regular season that will break down in our pregame shows and postgame shows. So make sure you're on the lookout for all that. But, and 81.5 wins for the New York Metropolitans in 2024. Are you taking the over or the under?
I was taking the over before. I'm going to take it over again. They're going to blast through that. I think I had them originally before JD Martinez around 82, 83 wins. Now I have them between 84 and 87 wins.
Okay, 84, 80. I think that's very respectable. I find myself in the same category as you. I think the Mets can range anywhere from 84 all the way to north of 90 if literally everything went right. They're buyers of the trade deadline, all that great stuff. Again, wishful thinking for us Mets fans, but it's still something to ponder. But I mean, just simple math. Are the Mets going to be a worse team last year than they were that they're going to be this year? Mets had 77 wins as sellers at the trade deadline, a team that was fringe all year long, a Mets team that on paper has better depth, in my opinion, is going to be quality in certain areas better. Now you want to take them at just 81.5? I'm absolutely hammering the over there too. If you guys and gals want to get in on the action as well, the odds currently, again, 81.5, minus 110 on the over, minus 120 on the under. So what that means is, again, if you're hammering the over like we are, you're going to put down, say, if you put down $110 and the Mets go on to win 82 or more games, you will then win an additional $100. So you're going to get 210 total. If you're going with the under and you put 120 down, you will get 100 if the Mets do not win 81.5 or more games by the regular season's end. So yeah, I think that's an easy hammer on the over for me too. I've been saying it all, trust me, all off-season long. I'm not saying they're going to get to 90 wins, but I have optimism that if the right moves happen, they could find themselves propelled to that point more so than I think the Mets have a world where they're closer to 90 than they are closer to 80 if everything goes right. And again, that's very wishful thinking on my end. I understand that. But and now as we take a look at the rotation, let's talk about some things for a minute. You got Luis Severino, who looked tremendous this spring. Sean Manaea, another strong spring as well, utilizing new pitches. Same thing even with Sevy. He has a new slider in his mix that he hasn't used in the past. You know, there's differentiation going on there. So my question to you is, between Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Adrian Hauser, I mean, the list goes on and on, Tyler McGill, Jose Quintana, when he's back and healthy, Kodai Senga, Jose Buto. When we look at some predictions here, and I'm going to ask you for a rapid fire on the following, okay? And you hit me, and you let me know which ones you'd like to break down further. You don't have to do them for all. Just going to ask you to rapid fire and which ones you'd like to expand, maybe for some context. So, starting with the best ERA for Mets starters this year, who do you got? Hold on, Ant. We lost your audio again. Give me 1 second.
It's not you. It's not you this time.
Thank
this
God.
is the time it's me.
And
Sorry about that.
I
I
was
had
about
put
to lose my
myself
shit,
on
Ant.
mute.
I was about to lose my shit.
I put myself on mute to call for a second, and then I had left it off.
You're good.
I was going to say Luis Severino. I'm going to go back to Kodai Senga. I think Kodai Senga is going to have the lowest ERA.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that too.
Yep.
I think once Sanga's back, let's not forget how talented he is, right? Leading the
Yeah.
way as the anchor of this rotation in many ways. I agree with you there. We're both on Kodai Senga for best ERA. Now let's get to most wins. This is an interesting one. Carlos Carrasco led the way in wins not long ago for the Mets, right? But does that mean he's the best starter? No. We know how flawed that stat is in itself. So regardless, I'm asking you, who's going to have the most wins for the Mets this year among starters?
This is where I go Luis Severino.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Severino, and I've been on the Severino train ever since the beginning of the offseason. I think he's going to have a big year and get himself a nice contract into next year.
Yes, 100%. I love that pick there. And honestly, even though I love the pick with Sevy, I'm going to go with one of the safest bets, in my opinion, this season, at least with what you know what you're getting. There's a lot of uncertainty with this Mets rotation, but there's one Adrian Hauser. And aside from Adrian Hauser's a lack of ability to go deep into games, that's my biggest concern when evaluating wins and losses. There's going to be a lot of starts where Hauser, say, goes a solid 5 innings, but because he didn't go deeper and the Mets didn't have much offense, he might get a no decision, right? So
that's deep into games these days, though.
it is
That's
deep into
5
games.
innings is deep.
It's which sucks, which really sucks. So this is not something
We
that
saw
should
it
be
last
normalized. Like we're gonna get to a point within the next couple of years where it's impressive if you make at least 100 innings, because that's already the world that we're kind of finding ourselves in. But yeah, I'm going to go with Adrian Hauser here just because I like his stability as a mainstay in this rotation. I like the type of pitcher he is. Again, a very ground ball heavy pitcher that we know that induces soft contact. He's going to have an electric middle infield behind him too, between Jeff and Lindor for the majority of the year. I really like that pick for most wins. Again, my concern is just how deep into a game he can go. And before we get on to the next stats here, you see JV with a donation. Thank you so much. He says, bring back the Wardy stare and we will win the World Series. Good morning from the Philippines. Good morning, my friend. Anthony, I don't know how much you're aware of the Wardy stare, but it's something that I would do from time to time, especially when I would tell everybody, okay, we're going to continue live, but for people that watch a replay, this is where we cut off the stream, because that's something I'll be doing a lot more this year. So that way, if you're watching live, you get a more long-winded version, so that way people can call in. And for people on replay, most of them are going to see a shortened version. That way it's more digestible for a lot of them. And during that pause where I want to make sure I can mark where to edit in the YouTube studio, I just stand there, sit there and pause and just stare for like a solid minute in the camera while the show's actively running. So JV, appreciate the donation. That's funny. Vision of Joe, my absolute beauty. This man made the sexiest thumbnail for the show today. Shout out to you, Joe. I appreciate you chiming in. Everyone watching live on a replay on Twitter and YouTube, make sure to hit all those buttons for your boys. Greatly appreciated. And let's get back into this discussion here. We're talking about best ERA, most wins. Now let's get on to a very important stat. Speaking of innings pitched, who's going to lead the way for the Mets in that regard?
I'm going to go Sean Manaea.
Okay.
I think that Sean Manaea may be able to pitch around 5 or 6. He looks like he's more of that finesse type pitcher that can last a little bit longer. Even in that game against the Yankees, I know he gave up the 2 runs, but he was around, I think, like 50 or 60 pitches by the 4th or 5th inning. And in these days standards, that's pretty solid. So we'll see what he does. I'm very intrigued by him, and I'm looking forward to seeing him pitch. So I'm going to go with innings. I'm going to go Sean Manaea.
Okay, Sean Manaea on the innings. That's a fascinating one, only because Manaea is this guy that, again, can start and relieve. So the fact that he's like the one starter in this rotation that actually has more of that flexibility, I like that pick quite a bit. You know, it's like the Mets don't have a lot of certainty in this rotation right now, and their innings pitch. But you know what I'm going to do, Ant? I'm going to do something that no one's ready for. I'm going to do something that truthfully makes
Don't say it.
no sense whatsoever if you've been looking at the track record, but I'm buying in. I'm buying the spring stock. It only matters when I think it matters. Luis Severino is going to lead the way for the Mets in innings pitched this year. This will be the best season he has had since at least 2018. Lock it in. Nothing else to say. I know that obviously there's bias involved, but Sevy, while he's had a lack of ability to stay on the field in recent years, one of the biggest issues he's had that he has said personally is his sleep. What has he worked on this offseason more than anything else? His sleep. He said it himself. He has finally been able to sleep right for the first time in years. This is a problem that he's had ongoing, which is one in hand with not just his performance, but fatigue is the big thing, right? It's not the ability to go out there and dominate with your adrenaline. It's, when you say get only a couple hours of sleep and you're fine all throughout the day, but then maybe like 5 or 6 p.m. hits and you just go crashing down. Like it all comes up and it catches up to you. That was Luis Severino in a lot of his starts the past couple years when he was able to get on the mound and be healthy. So I think between a better sleep regimen, working on his pitch mix a little bit more, that new slider looks absolutely disgusting. I'm picking Luis Severino as the winner in innings eaten by a starting pitcher this year. Kodai Senga I'd probably have there if it wasn't for him starting the year on the shelf, but because he is, naturally I can't pick him there. We're halfway to 100 likes as well. Continue to smash that like and subscribe on, everybody. Really does mean a lot. Oh, I just realized the time too. Do you want us to go kind of rapid fire with everything else?
Yeah, keep going. Just have a few more minutes.
Okay. All right, that's fine. All right, so let's continue get rolling with this one, because even if you have to get out of here, I can continue myself. It's not a big deal. And for those that don't know, we were supposed to do the show at 6 today. Literally took an hour plus of troubleshooting with the audio. Ant has his own live show that he's going to be doing right after this one that you guys can check out on his platforms too. So I don't want to take up too much of his time. But okay, we've talked about most innings pitched. Now let's get into most strikeouts and the best K per nine.
I'm going to go Luis Severino on that one. I think that he can, if he could find his form again, he was one of those more elite pitchers with the Yankees in his early tenure. I know he kind of lost it, but I do feel like he would be the guy. And I only say that because Kodai Senga is going to miss the first 2 months. So, he's going to have to catch up a lot on strikeouts, which he can. But I'm going to go Severino on this one as well.
Okay, Sevy on that one. I agree with you there. I'm going to take Sevy on the most strikeouts, but the best K per nine, I'm going to go with Kodai Senga, just because once Senga returns, I do think he's going to get more swing and miss than anyone else in this rotation. Let us know how you guys feel in the chat as well. Greatly appreciated. Now we have walks per nine. Who do you think is going to be the best pitcher in this rotation with his walk ratio?
And that's in terms of not giving up as many walks.
Correct. So, like,
right?
For example, a good walks per nine, in my opinion, is a 2 walks per nine is solid. 3 walks per nine is in the end of the world. It varies from starter to reliever, but anywhere, especially if you're going to find yourself 2 under, pretty solid for a pitcher.
This is a tough one. It's definitely not Tyler McGill.
It's not.
I don't have Tyler McGill on that one. Dang, do I go Sevy again? I'm going to go with Sevy again. I don't know. It's a tough one because Kodai's going to be out for so long.
Right.
And he was prone to giving up walks as well when he first started out. So I'll go Sevy.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Adrian Hauser there, only because, like you said, there's a lot of uncertainty, where even if we have effective pitching this year, it might be backed by a decent amount of walks in doing so. So I'm going to go with Adrian Hauser there. I like your pick, though, too. That is a trickier one. That's where you could have more of a debate for sure.
Yeah.
And then the last final questions here for the rotation. And then, Ant, if you got to get out of here, no worries. If you want to keep going, that's fine, too. We got least innings pitched and worst ERA. So they're 2 separate ones. So give me one for each.
Least innings pitch right now, I'm going to go Tyler McGill. And then you said worst. What was the worst one?
Worst ERA.
Worst ERA. I'm also going to go Tyler McGill. And it's not to, I mean, I don't know. From what we've seen from him in the past, until he proves otherwise to be a more consistent pitcher, and maybe he finds it this year. But as of right now, from what we've seen, I have him set for those 2.
I'm going to agree with you on both, mainly because I just don't know how much Tyler McGill we're actually going to see this year. Because the Mets do have a plethora of pitching depth in their organization, if McGill goes out and say has a couple rough starts and Jose Butto is like locked in, I don't think it's going to take the Mets long to consider other options, because they know they have an abundance of them. Not only from the likes of Jose Butto and Joey Lucchesi, but then whether it's May, June, or July, Mike Vassell, right? Christian Scott, those guys can come in and be impactful right away too. So yeah, it's an interesting one to evaluate for sure. And that's really how we feel with all the latest predictions for the starting rotation. Again, make sure to let us know if you guys agree or disagree. And where are you on this one? Are you going to run or are you going to continue?
I'll hit a couple of more, but there's one question that you asked me off air that I'd like to hit at the moment. And that was, which bullpen I think piece you said outside of Edwin Diaz do you
Right.
like? That was that one of the questions. I am going to go with this may be shocking, Jorge Lopez. I think that he is going to
Yes.
be very solid, and the fact that the Mets brought in Jose Rosado to be the bullpen coach, he coached him for Team Puerto Rico, and that was when he was at his best in the World Baseball Classic. So I'm going to go with Jorge Lopez as maybe the second best reliever. He could wind up being the setup man at some point. That's how good he was.
Yes, he has set up potential just like Shintaro Fujinami, just like Jake Diekman at times. A lot of these guys you're going to see in setup roles for the Mets. They're going to interchange them throughout the year, right? And that's a good thing to have in a bullpen. You don't want to be too reliant on one guy in those set positions because that's where you end up having issues if they don't perform well. I like that pick a lot, especially when you look at everything that he can provide to this bullpen. This is a 2022 All-Star with the Baltimore Orioles, was on multiple teams last year, fine-tuning his arsenal quite a bit. Looked great in the WBC before the season began, as we know, but then as the season went on, that's where he had his fair share of struggles. So Jorge Lopez is a true definition of a lot of good relievers in Major League Baseball. Electric stuff, but they are Jekyll and Hyde with what you get on a year-by-year basis. So Lopez definitely has the potential, and I like that pick quite a bit. If I'm going to go with the best reliever not named Edwin Diaz in the Mets bullpen this year, I think I'm going to... Oh, there's a lot of good ones, of course, but I got to go with my man Brooks
Yeah.
Raley. I'm a huge Brooks Raley guy. Just ever since the Mets acquired him, I loved him during his time in Tampa. He's one of these southpaws that's crafty that I'm pretty sure was overseas too, pitching in Korea for a little bit. Came back, worked on his game, became a really strong southpaw reliever. He provides a different mix of arsenal than what you're getting from Jake Diekman too. He's more of a soft tosser. He doesn't throw the heat to Diekman's extent, and he just gets quality outs against both lefties and righties. So Brooks Raley, kind of falls in that Aaron Loop category in the first year with the Mets. I think he's just going to have a very good, savvy year as one of the few southpaws in this Mets bullpen. So I got to go with Brooks Raley in that pick. To everyone that's watching live here on Twitter or YouTube, let us know, what reliever do you think is going to be the best in the Mets bullpen this year, not named Edwin Diaz? Because we can all sit here and pick Edwin for like every statistical award, but even with there being uncertainty with Edwin this season, it doesn't change the fact that we want to talk about other guys and not make it such an obvious pick, if you will. And I let you go here, speaking of Edwin Diaz, please share with us all what your experience was like witnessing Edwin Diaz pitch for the first time this spring, because I know you have something important to say about that.
Yeah, man, it got me emotional, man. It really did. I really feel like he's the heart and soul of this team. Obviously, the importance of Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso and Nimmo. We know they're the leaders and stuff, but at the core, I think really Edwin Diaz is that missing link. And we saw it last year that he was very missed. He comes back. I know it was against the Marlins and against the minor leaguers, but just seeing him on the mound, striking out the side, seeing him fully healthy, coming out to Narcos, it was an awesome experience. And, he's from the same town as my grandfather is. So I got that little connect with Edwin Diaz, and I really hope he comes back. And he doesn't even have to be 2022 Edwin Diaz. I just want him to be healthy. I want him to strike out batters. I want him to get saves and help get this team to a winning record.
I 100% agree with you. And as someone who had the privilege to see Edwin pitch on that mound in Port St. Lucie in person, I'm sure you saw the video on Twitter. I was voice cracking. I was all over the place. And I truthfully, that was all genuine emotion. That wasn't like me, okay, let's make sure we react a certain way for Twitter. It was like, no, as soon as I started to hear the trumpets and him trot out, I was losing my shit. It is surreal to see Edwin return and look exactly like nothing's ever changed a year ago. Even with it being spring, he was just pure dominance. Like, you could see the fear in the opposing batters of the Miami Marlins as soon as he got on that mound. Only one batter touched a baseball that Edwin Diaz threw. There was one pitch that I think was either fouled off or it was actually a ball thrown by Edwin. I'm not even sure if there was much contact. Like, he was just fantastic. Was 3 up, 3 down that we saw. Edwin Diaz, who said it himself today that he worked a lot on his health throughout the rehab time. You know, he eliminated a lot of candy in his diet, which he said was a problem for him, and now he's been eating more salads, which he never ate prior. So you're telling me Edwin Diaz in 2022 didn't have one leaf of green in his system all year long? Who knows what can happen this year? This might be the best Edwin yet if he's going to stay hydrated and healthy like we haven't seen in years prior. So Edwin Diaz, we're not only excited about him, this is a guy we literally get emotional about because what a tremendous story he has been for the Mets at the major league level. A guy that came up in 2019 and the massive trade with the Seattle Mariners, blew every other save opportunity that you could possibly imagine, was horrendous, couldn't locate his slider or his fastball. They were never working in unison. 2020 has a much better shortened campaign. 2021, much better too, but you can't pitch him on back-to-back days or in non-save situations. And then in 2022, he puts it all together to be the best reliever in Major League Baseball. Edwin Diaz will go on to be one of the best, if not the best, in Major League Baseball again. And I can't wait. Anthony, I know you got your show to do, so I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you run out of here. But before I do, please let everyone know where they can find you. And then, guys and gals, from there, we're going to continue on with the show, riding solo, and we'll just be doing plenty of interaction in the live chat because we got more to talk about from the batters, a little bit more on the bullpen and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Subway to Shay. Follow the podcast on Apple and Spotify for audio, for video. I'm on YouTube, so you can follow me at Subway to Shay. Wardy, I appreciate you having me on. I wish we kind of got the connection working. So
it's all my fault, man. It's nothing on your end. I appreciate your patience,
good, man.
Thank you so much.
And I'm very excited for something that we're not talking about just yet, and you will announce sometime soon.
Sometime soon. Yes, we're very excited. Just everybody, I hope you guys like Anthony Rivera because he's not going anywhere. You're going to see him on the channel more than ever before this year, and he will not be the only one. Things are changing in the right direction here on the channel that we're very excited for, so be on the lookout. Anthony, thank you again, my friend, and we'll talk real soon, okay?
Appreciate you, man, and let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets, baby. Shout out to Ant for chiming in. Always appreciate that. I'm going to try to troubleshoot this and make it so it doesn't look like I'm just talking to an empty box here. So as I do that, I appreciate everyone's patience. Continue to smash that like and subscribe button. In the meantime, for my Twitter viewers, for my YouTube viewers, let me know what is the player that you think is going to be the most surprising for the Mets this year. Whether it's on the offensive end or the pitching end, let me know in the live chat. And for people down below on replay, thank you all so much in advance. Ooh, there we go. We'll do that. Talking Mets Q&A. It's basically the same thing. We're continuing this segment, everybody. So everybody, nothing's changing. We're continuing with the show. Just want to make sure that I'm formatted a proper way. So I think we're good to go now. I do see some donations I want to get to too, and then I'll answer some of the comments you guys got for me. Like I said, who do you think is going to be the biggest surprise for the Mets this year? Right around 40 likes away from 100. Continue smashing those buttons. Thank you all so much in advance as you guys are chiming into the official 2024 New York Metropolitan season preview and prediction show. Sponsored by our amazing friends at BetUS for all your sports betting needs. Click the link in the description. That way you too get a 125% bonus with your first 3 deposits. And again, you're going to be seeing a lot of them this season, folks, because we're going to be doing unique WardyNYM parlays, as I mentioned. I'm going to be telling you in our pregame shows what is my favorite pick of the day. So be on the lookout for that. It might just be Jeff McHit's 2 or more hits a game. It might be, Luis Severino's 6.5 Ks or more. Whatever the best lines are that I'm liking through BetUS is what we will emphasize. And of course, make sure you guys bet responsibly. Do not want you to get involved if you don't know what you're doing. King Fuego, absolute beauty. Happy to have you in here. Salute. Manuel says with the $5 haul, thank you so much. He says, remember, McGill learned the ghost pitch and used it well. Maybe a sleeper in some of these categories. I agree. I have definitely a level of optimism with Tyler McGill this year. To what degree, though, that again is what we're going to see as he, of course, toes the rubber for the Mets in just the coming days. SLR, thank you for the $5 donation. He says 84 wins, 3rd wild card spot, swept in the first round. Honestly, if the Mets make the wild card, I don't think there's too many people complaining. Yes, we would not be happy if we got swept right away, but still, I think if the Mets make playoffs with 84 wins, I don't even see that happening. If the Mets make playoffs, I think they need more than 84 wins, personally. I think between how the NL West is now, the depth in the NL East, and the NL Central being a sleeper, honestly, it's not going to be easy to make playoffs this year whatsoever. And that goes actually directly in hand with our BetUS playoff odds I'd love to share with you briefly. Are you guys and gals taking the over or the under on the Mets' chances to make playoffs? Right now, they're at plus 160 per BetUS to make playoffs, and you would hit yes. And if you don't think they're going to make playoffs, they are minus 200. So the favorite right now is that, yes, the Mets will not make playoffs this season. You are a underdog pick if you hit yes on that plus 160. So let me know. I'm really curious too. Do you guys think the Mets will or won't make playoffs this year, especially when you evaluate those odds? Again, plus 160 odds. We just bet that on the channel the other day. It's really hard not to, with being a semi-optimistic, a little bit of a homer fan at times, and also knowing that you don't need to have the most wins to make playoffs, but you do need a lot of things to go right by down the stretch in the season, being a buyer at the trade deadline, and all those kind of things. We're not making it says ain't nobody seen nobody. I'm not surprised to hear that from you, brother. Let's see what else we got to everybody in the live show. This thumbnail is sick. Appreciate you, Pat. You absolute beauty. We'll be back at it with Bridging the Gap podcast in just a couple days. Be on the lookout for that. Everyone's favorite Yankee fan said absolutely nobody. Even Yanks fans hate the guy really bad. If you know, you know. Check social media. Shout out to you, Pat. I appreciate you chiming in. Deuce McBride is going off again for the New York Knickerbockers. You love to see that too. But we're getting off topic. All right. So as you guys let me know and continue to let me know in the live chat. Now let's talk more about predictions, because we talked about the rotation. We talked about the rotation, but we didn't break down bullpen. So let's do that now, okay? For the Mets bullpen, I've got the following statistics. Not statistics, but just bullet points here. I'd love to hear your input on them, everybody, especially people that watch on replay to this. Best ERA, best walks per nine, most innings pitched, most multi-inning outings, worst ERA, worst walks per nine. So in order, best ERA, it feels really hard for me to not pick Edwin Diaz, but I'm actually going to pick Brooks Raley, everybody. I think Brooks Raley may very well have the best ERA for the Mets this year. Not to down Edwin Diaz's abilities, but I think based on the situations that they'll be utilized, Brooks Raley can very well be a reliever for the Mets that sits right around a 2 to 2.5 ERA this year. Edwin will probably fall in that category elsewhere, but all it takes is just, say, a couple bad blown saves and what is really a great season overall for Edwin to have a slightly inflated ERA, and then the expected numbers, of course, would back him more. So based on that logic, I'm going to go with Brooks Raley, actually, for best ERA. Might come as a surprise pick, but I do have a lot of faith in Raley this season as one of the few southpaws in that Mets bullpen. From there, we go to best walks per nine. This is a fascinating one, too. Who's going to have the best walks per nine in this Mets bullpen between Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, Brooks Raley, Drew Smith, Jake Diekman, Jorge Lopez, Michael Tonkin, Johan Ramirez, SRF, who I don't think is going to be making the Mets bullpen. I am going to go with Edwin Diaz on the walks per nine. Yes, we know that Edwin can get erratic at times, but he's the best reliever in Major League Baseball. I don't think we're going to have too many outings from him where he's walking everyone and their mother, hopefully. Adam Ottavino, very Jekyll and Hyde at times with what you're getting, depending on if he's pitching on back-to-back days. That's where he struggles to command the strike zone a little bit. Drew Smith, don't even get me started. Again, he might be throwing a lot there in the zone, but it's getting barreled hard. So I got bigger issues with Drew on that front. Jake Diekman sits casually around a 6 walks per nine every year. No. No. And yeah, that's all I got for you. I think Edwin Diaz is a fairly safe pick there to be leading the way in walks per nine for the Amazons. Let me know how you guys feel on that one too. 30 likes away from 100. Thank you guys so much in advance for that, as always. But we went from the best ERA and the best walks per nine. Now let's do best and most innings pitched for the Mets out of this bullpen. This is a fascinating one, right? Because Edwin Diaz, we know, is going to pitch a decent amount of innings, but how many save situations are the Mets going to have for him, right? Then we look at, okay, if Michael Tonkin is a mainstay in this rotation, in this bullpen, is he going to eat the amount of innings that he ate with Atlanta last year? That's another great question, right? So there's a lot of interesting options for the Mets, and you could even argue that maybe a Jose Buto, maybe to an extent a Sean Manaea, might be viewed more as a reliever than a starter by the end of the year with how much they were utilized in those relief pitching roles, mainly Buto more than Manaea. But I'm actually going to go with the guy that eats innings really well. We know that. We saw it last year with the rival club. I'm going to go with the man that I would assume is going to, in fact, be on, yes, this bullpen to begin the opening day roster, and that is, yes, Michael Tonkin. If he gets cut somehow, I will be genuinely surprised by that. I think Tonkin makes this bullpen, and I think Michael Tonkin is going to be utilized for a couple innings at least every single time he's out there, or more often than not. He was actually asked as well in one of his last spring outings his comfortability pitching at least 2 innings every time out there, and he said he has absolutely no problems in doing exactly that. So Tonkin has the comfortability as a guy that can eat anywhere from 80 to 100 innings for you. There's not a lot of guys in this Mets bullpen that I trust to be able to do such a thing at the quality level in which Tonkin can provide for you, 3.5 to 4 year array. So because of those reasons, I'm going to go with Michael Tonkin on my pick there. Why are you live streaming during the Knicks game? I can't cross my eyes, bro. I'm sorry, David. But hey, I can't work my schedule every single time around the Knicks game. Makes you feel any better? I was supposed to start the stream at 6 today, but audio issues decided, you know what, we're starting at 7. So blame the audio issues, not me. But now we continue to go further, my friend. Now let's see here. We talked about best ERA, best walks per nine, most innings pitch, most multi-inning outings. I'm going to pair that as well. I think that's the same thing. Most innings pitch, most multi-inning outings. I'm going to go both of them with Michael Tonkin until proven otherwise, because as things currently stand, he is going to be, again, that mid to long reliever in this Mets bullpen to begin the 2024 regular season. If Tonkin somehow does not make the Mets bullpen, if that changes in the coming hours, if not by tomorrow, where they make an announcement who makes the pen and who doesn't, if that is the case, then of course we can have that different discussion then in a future live show. But I'm going with Tonkin now. And then as we get on to worst ERA, I'm on the relievers currently available in the Mets pen. I am actually going to go ERA wise with. Am I going to do it? Am I going to say it? I think I might say it. Yeah, Drew Smith. I don't even know why I was overthinking. Forgot about Drew for a sec. Drew Smith. On to the next. Worst walks per nine, Jake Diekman. Easy hammer. BetUS doesn't have these as odds for you guys to bet, which is unfortunate because he would make so much money. Jake Diekman as the man who have the worst walks per nine and eligible relievers for the Mets this year. I'm picking that. And then same applies, of course, that we saw with the other one, which was worst ERA. I'm not going with him there. I'm going to go, as I mentioned, with Drew Smith. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree with those picks in particular. But now let's take the talk. We talked about the bullpen. We talked about the rotation. Now let's get into the spicy stuff, everybody. Let's talk about this damn Mets offense. Why are we talking about this Mets offense? Because with the acquisition of JD Martinez is now potentially one of the better ones in the NL. Of course, it's very top heavy. I don't love how it looks 6 through 9, but at the same time, I don't think there's a lot of things that need to necessarily change for the Mets to get at a level where there is consistency. You just need Starling Marte to be able to, one, be alive, and two, be productive. And you need Brett Beatty to just really, Brett Beatty performs the way we saw in spring. Not the best production, but certainly an upgrade over what you got last year. If we get an 800 OPS out of Brett Beatty this year, sky's the limit. Of course, a 250 between a 250 to 265 average and around an 800 OPS at the hot corner. I am not complaining there from Brett Beatty. I would love to see more, but my bar is fairly low just given the current situation that we're in with him and its development. So here we go, baby. Let's talk about this offense. Best batting average for the Mets this year. I'm hammering Jeff McNeil, the 2022 batting champ, had an underwhelming 2023 season. Of course, really picked things up in the last couple months of the year. Dealt with a bicep issue throughout spring, but he's healthy. He's good to go. I'm picking Jeff McNeil with a bounce back. Even if he doesn't finish the year in a Mets uniform, I think he's going to lead the way in an average. Most games played, Francisco Lindor. Lindor, the only chance he misses games is if he has a significant injury. We're talking about like one that'll keep him on the shelf for a while, knock on wood. Anything otherwise, if it's a broken finger, he'll miss at most a game like he did 2 years ago in LA when he somehow, someway got his finger caught in a freaking door, the most ridiculous thing ever, and played through that pain for the ensuing months. I got to go with Lindor. He has been Mr. Reliable. I trust him more than very few other guys in this current roster when evaluating position players who to stay on the field. So I'm going to go with my man Francisco Lindor there. Most hits, I'm going to go back to Jeff McHits, the hits god himself. Jeff McNeil is going to lead the way in hits. He's going to go back to his hitting ways of giving you 2 to 3 hits consistently on a game-by-game basis. And hopefully, one can only wish the stretch of games in which he does not hit well isn't to the same magnitude as it was last year. Because Jeff was absolutely brutal in certain stretches. Just wants some more consistency. Jeff. Remember, you're allowed to hit for opposite field too. I'm not sure if you remember that, Jeff. You can do that, okay? I know that there's no drastic shift, so it's not like you're taking advantage to go oppo the way you were with the shift. Still, though, you're way too pole happy last year, pissed everyone off, including myself. I love you, Jeff. We know how talented you are. Spread the field a little bit more, like we saw in 2022 and the years prior, the batting champ way, and I do fully believe you will lead the way in hits for the Metropolitans this year. From there, we get on to most runs scored. Most runs scored is a tricky one, but I am going to go with, there's a couple great options here that you could think about in the organization at the moment. Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, that mix, obviously. But honestly, I think a sleeper, and I'm going to say it because it's kind of a sleeper, a guy that had 90-plus runs scored last year, right around. He gets on base at a great clip, and yes, he knows how to run on base pass well, just doesn't steal bags all that much. I'm going to go with Brandon Nimmo. I think Brandon Nimmo is one going to showcase more power than we've seen in years past. I think he's going to get close to 30 this year. I will stand by that. And I also think that he's just going to be in play offensively a lot, you know, as he always is. As that plate setter, I firmly believe that Brandon Nimmo is going to find himself in that hopefully 85 to 100 plus runs scored area. Might not end up being the first, but I think he will be in that conversation. And for the sake of not doing the same exact picks every single time, I'm going to go with Brandon Nimmo there. I like that pick for him. Eddie Krause, absolute beauty. Thank you so much for the $5 donation. For those that don't know Eddie was the 2022 New York Metropolitan Kidcaster of the Year per SNY. Eddie got a chance to be with Gary, Keith, and Ron in the booth, which was so sick. Absolute beauty. Saw him earlier this year at Port St. Lucie, actually, where he was on the field, got to hang out with some guys like Mark Canha, of course, former Met, now with the Detroit Tigers. Got to interact with a lot of people. Eddie does great stuff. Please make sure to check him out on socials and on his YouTube channel too, where he does a great job. Eddie, please make sure to plug your show for people to check you out in the live chat here on YouTube right now. I'll let everyone know what the title of it is, so that way they can find you whenever they get a chance to do exactly that. Dave, how you doing? Hope all is well. I'm doing fantastic. I hope the Mets extend Pete. I hope so too. It isn't happening though. Extension for Pete Alonso's would have already happened. He's going to hit the open market, and that's why he's going to have a massive year. I'm going to say Polar Bear on that one. Contract year, my boy's playing. Absolutely. Again, that's another good pick, too, for sure. But we talked about, okay, we got into best average, most games played, most hits, most runs scored. Now let's get on to best batting average with runners in scoring position. Now, this is different, everybody, because just because you've been batting great all year doesn't mean you know how to clutch up, right? We've seen in years past where the Mets have struggled with runners in scoring position. So who is going to be the man to clutch up most with Mets and runners in scoring position this year? It is the new man on the block. I repeat, the new man. JD effing Martinez is going to lead the way. He's going to have the best batting average of runners in scoring position. He's batting cleanup basically every day of the week when he's healthy in this lineup. Do you understand how many opportunities this man is going to have with guys on base? Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso is the 1, 2, 3 ahead of him, right? Pete Alonso is going to get walked sometimes, so they see JD Martinez crazy enough. JD Martinez is in a brilliant position right now as a Mets true cleanup hitter. Miss me with that McNeil and cleanup nonsense. Everyone that was preaching that as the best fit, I'm sorry. I don't know what planet you're on, but it's not the one I'm on. I'm on one that has JD Martinez in it. JD Martinez, I fully expect to lead the way for the Mets in that regard. He's going to be in runners in scoring positions probably more than anyone else in the lineup or close to, right? It's Alonso and JDM. I got to go with JD Martinez there. He's been absolutely clutch every year in, year out. He's so big in the big moment. He knows what it takes to win a World Series champion that would love to get back to the dance before his career wraps up. JD Martinez is my pick there for sure. Love to see that. Would love to see your picks as well, and everybody watching live in a replay as we're breaking down the Mets season preview and predictions for 2024. Now that wraps things up on the offensive end. So now let's get into the fun part. Over-unders on home runs for the Mets Big Boppers, all courtesy of our great friends at BetUS. And it starts with Francisco Alvarez. El Troll, hashtag extend my man. Give him a decade-long contract like we saw the Dodgers sign Will Smith at $140 million. Give this man the bag. Give him a long-term deal. I don't care if he hasn't even been in the league for a full season. He needs to be extended. Why? Because he is a potential generational talent at the backstop position. If not, definitely at least franchise talent for sure. The best thing since Mike Piazza's not close. Extend this man. Francisco Alvarez, per BetUS, currently sits 22 and a half. Are you hammering the over or the under on home runs there? I'm sorry, I don't know what world you're living in. If you hammer the under, I really want to know what you're smoking. Pass it over here. It's got to be some good stuff, because otherwise you're absolutely hammering the over on Francisco Alvarez. The man hit 25 bombs with his eyes closed last year as a rookie who didn't know what a strike zone was the first month of the season when he was called up. He didn't even start the year with the Mets. He didn't get called up until after Omar Narvaez's injury. Let's not forget that. This guy is going to be so damn good for the Mets this year. I think we're not talking 22 home runs. What the odds should be is over under 32 and a half, not 22 and a half. Francisco Alvarez is going to blow through this thing. He may very well be a 40 home run bat for the Mets from the backstop position this year. If you're wondering why exactly is that possible, for the few days where JD Martinez maybe doesn't play, maybe he has an off day, who do you think is going to be that DH spot aside from maybe a Starling Marte every now and then? Francisco Alvarez will get some reps at DH this year because of how good and how dynamic that bat is. Won't be too often now that they have JDM, but there will be instances. And in those instances, I expect him to step up like he has done early on in his young career. Francisco Alvarez, easy hammer. And again, you gotta love it, guys. The odds right now, minus 125 on the over, minus 105 on the under. If you're a sports bettor like me that bets responsibly, click the link down below to sign up with BetUS today. That way you can get free money by hammering the over on the Alvarez bombs here. Another one that I honestly think is an easy hammer on the over, not just because he hit 24 home runs last year, but more so because of the guy who's probably going to hit north of 30 this year, and that's Brandon F. Nimmo. Brandon Nimmo, folks, is at 19.5 per BetUS on the homers. Are you taking the over, which is minus 130 on the odds, which means you have to bet $130 in order to win an additional 100 there, or do you want to go for the even odds on the under? Now, Brandon Nimmo, again, why is he hitting only 19 home runs this year? Why is he not hitting at least 20? As long as he stays healthy. Brandon Nimmo, hammer, hammer, hammer. I wish I had the "that was easy" button next to me so I could just hammer that thing the entire time, because making these bets is as easy as cheese and wine. They go together, baby. And that is what I'm loving on the overs here with Brandon Nimmo on 19.5 bombs. Then from there, JD Martinez, a new man on the block. You want to know what BetUS has him at right now, guys? Yes. 21.5. I know JDM is going to miss the first 10 games at least of the season. But that's likely all it's going to be. 21.5 for JD Martinez, the same guy who said, I did not sign with the San Francisco Giants because I know that people are going to call me washed if I only hit around 20 bombs because of Oracle Park being one of the hardest parks to hit out of. I know it's hard. That's why I'm not going there. Citi Field is much better for me, to the point where, yes, even though Citi Field isn't a hitter's park, folks, it is for JD Martinez because he hits balls really high and really far. If he had 650 plate appearances in Citi Field last season, he had an expected 59 home runs, everybody. 59. What are we doing here? 21.5 is the easiest thing. Give me the over. Easy over. I'm expecting JDM to at least have anywhere from 25 to 35 plus home runs this season. So much easy hammers, which is, again, why I highly implore you all to get in on this action. Not just because they're the sponsor here on the channel, but because of how unbelievably awesome these odds are in favor of you as a diehard Mets fan that knows what to get from these players, knows what to expect. Again, JDM minus 105 on the over, minus 125 on the under. The odds are better on the over right now, guys. Hammer that. 105, $105 to win an additional 100. Sign me up every single day of the week. JD Martinez, I'm hammering the over there in the home runs every day, night and day. Night and day. I've yet to find something where I can justifiably say we're going the under on the home runs. So far, not so good. But this is where you could have a proper debate. Francisco Lindor, 27.5 home runs. Will he go over or will he go under? On one hand, you want to say, oh, this is an easy hammer for a guy that's been sitting right around 30 bombs the past couple of years. But at the same time, if Francisco Lindor does just miss even, a week stretch of games for whatever reason, that could make or break his ability to get to that mark, because we know that while he's a guy that, of course, can go gap to gap, hit bombs tremendously, we don't know exactly what his ceiling will be home run-wise with the Mets just yet. So this one, I think, is a little bit more of a fair debate, because it's like, you're really not far away from 30 there. But at the same time, do you really expect Lindor to have less home runs in 2024 rather, than he had the past 2 seasons individually? That's where I find myself still hammering the over here. But I think if there's one that is a proper debate, if there's any that's a proper debate, it is the one I'm telling you right now. Minus 115 on the over, minus 115 on the under. So you're fine either way with whatever you prefer. There isn't an odd that's better either way. So Francisco Lindor, 27.5 on the home runs. And to wrap things up on the home run discussion, everybody, we have to talk about Pete Alonso. 42.5 home runs. Easiest hammer of the century. This man, you might as well put a 5 to start that conversation, not a 4. Pete Alonso in a contract year where he's pushing for the bag. He's pushing anywhere from 250 to 300 million that he's looking for naturally, I'm sure. You really think Pete Alonso's going to have less home runs than he's had the past couple years? You really think that's going to happen? Pete Alonso is going to have a tremendous season for the Mets. He's likely going to lead the Mets in most offensive statistics this year. He was locked in already in spring. For him to be as locked in as he is early, he's going to be guns effing a-blazing. Easy hammer on the over, 42.5. Crazy to say when we discuss numbers to this magnitude of a home run hitter, but that's the reality with someone like Pete Alonso, because that is how good he is. And in a contract year, something we've never seen. Again, I just spoke about Francisco Alvarez, Brandon Nimmo, JD Martinez, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso. What do those 5 have in common? Those are the 5 big boppers in this Mets lineup. What do they also have in common? Those are the 5 batters that should be leading the way for the best and most ideal Mets lineup for the 2024 season. And I'm going to be frank with you. Once we get on to 6, 7, 8, 9, it's kind of a coin flip for me. I don't have an overwhelming preference one way or the other. Of course, if you want to get a little creative and mix things up a little bit between your lefty-righty batters, that's fine. But as things currently stand, what is so important, in my opinion, is having the best players in this lineup in the best position to succeed as often as possible. The Mets want to score bombs early and often. This is how you do it. Brandon Nimmo leading off. Francisco Lindor in the 2-hole. Pete Alonso batting third, where he should be all season long. All season long. It would be nothing short of a disgrace if the Mets allow Pete Alonso to get much of any reps in the 4-hole. Why, you might ask? Why are you going to allow a man, in a walk year no less, have potential less at-bats? The fact that Pete Alonso has won the majority of his Mets career without having a guaranteed first inning at-bat is the biggest joke imaginable. And that goes in hand with their lack of power. So Pete Alonso moves up in the order. He's batting third. Fourth? Once he's returned from his little stint there in Port St. Lucie, JD Martinez will be batting cleanup. Fifth, Francisco Alvarez. We got our own murderer's row here, baby. Between Alonso, between JDM, between Alvarez. I mean, that 5, those are all guys, all batters that are capable of having 30 home run season for the Mets. Brandon Nimmo might be the biggest stretch regarding that, but they all have the potential. They all have the possibility. So I'm hammering all of them on the overs there. That 1 through 5 is one of the better ones in Major League Baseball. Then you get on to 6. Okay, 6, let's go Jeff McNeil at 6, right? 7th, let's go with Starling Marte. Or actually, you can make the argument if you want to put Marte all the way in the 9-hole, depending on if it's Bader or Tyrone Taylor that's in the lineup too, because I like the idea of your 9 batter being someone that can also be another leadoff, another guy that can be on there for potentially Francisco Lindor or Pete Alonso, right? So either of those is fine with me. It's going to be one of those outfielders, I'm sure, in the 9th spot. Brett Beatty, again, if you want him in the 7th or 8th hole, is fine with me too. You can interchange things pretty much 6 through 9 in various ways. But I think Francisco Alvarez needs to be the Mets' 5th batter more often than not this season. I think it would be silly to have him in the 7th spot, which they did plenty. For the type of bat that he is, for how much this Mets offense will be reliant on their front-loaded power, you need to do everything in your possible, you need to do everything humanly possible, apologies everybody, to make sure that Alvarez is batting in the 1 through 5 spot. I think that's vital. I think that's beyond important. And I think by doing that, you not only provide further protection for JD Martinez, Pete Alonso, something they've never had in their careers for the most part at this point, and mainly in the case of Pete Alonso, not so much JDM, because he's had protection during his time in Boston, of course, with the LA Dodgers, etc. But Pete Alonso has seen more pitches out of the zone, has made contact with more pitches out of the zone than any other batter in Major League Baseball since arriving in the beginning of 2019. Now you're telling me you're going to have a guaranteed home run bat that's just as deadly around as Pete Alonso, a better contact hitter in many ways at times too, and a JD Martinez right behind him. Pete's going to see more pitches to hit. JDM's going to see more pitches to hit when you have Francisco Alvarez there. And here's the thing. Okay, they're going to look at Alonso and JDM and say, okay, these are the veterans, the big boppers. We're not going to attack them. We're going to attack Francisco Alvarez. See how that is going to work for you as he hits that thing 450 feet out of the park, out of sight, out of town, as the Mets would then take a 5-0 lead there in the 4th inning. That is what I want to see. Francisco Alvarez, let's make it happen. Prediction, Mr. T said it best. Pain, sissy boy, I think the name checks out, if I'm being honest. Just the fact that I read your name is hilarious there. LFGM to everyone chiming in the chat, everybody. We're going to be wrapping up the show just in the next couple minutes, folks. We went through it all. Shout out to my man, Anthony Rivera, who was a beauty to come on the show today, too. Really appreciate that. But what I want to emphasize with you all is Francisco Alvarez needs to be in that fit spot, everybody. I just don't see how it makes much sense to have him batting 6th, 7th consistently with how much front-loaded power you can have that can propel this team in so many games. How many Mets games did we watch last year and the last couple of years where the Mets, again, didn't get up early and often, and because they didn't, they ended up losing the game. They gave up runs early and often, but say they didn't start their scoring until the 4th, 5th, 6th inning, all right, then you're screwed a lot of the times. By having this much offense early in your first couple innings, it'll make a significant difference. It'll show you the true depth of this offense. It'll show you exactly why the Mets, at minimum, need to operate their 1 through 5 in this specific way, more than any other thing. Again, I think you can make rightful arguments in certain situations based on matchups, lefty-righty mix. I understand that. I know it's going to be ever-changing throughout the course of 162, led by Carlos Mendoza, but the same applies once more. Francisco Alvarez, JD Martinez, Pete Alonso, Francisco Lindor, and Brandon Nimmo. You're 5 through 1. If it's anything otherwise, I'm going to probably complain about it a little bit just because of how much I love the look of that 1 through 5. So, Mets fans, that is going to do it for the live show. I want to thank you all so much that took the time to watch. I apologize to everyone that was patiently waiting for the show, that we had to start the show over again. Ridiculous audio issues today that we hopefully will have troubleshooted for shows going further. Be on the lookout. Again, we will be live with pre- and post-game coverage beginning this Friday. Mets baseball is back. I'm excited. I hope you guys and gals are too. If you're attending opening day, let me know your reactions from attending that weekend's worth of games too in the comments that you watch the post-game shows or whatever type of content it might be. Make sure to check me out not only here on YouTube at WardyNYM, the largest Mets platform for all Mets coverage, not directly affiliated with the Mets or SNY, for consistent coverage all season long with myself and the amazing friends that we'll have here on the channel. We'll be doing live callers as well for our post-game shows, but aside from that, check me out on Twitter at WardyNYM, where you can catch the live shows too. I just will not be interacting with Twitter viewers, that I will be here on YouTube chat to incentivize you to still come on YouTube and check out all that stuff. And on Bleacher Report, I have a bunch of segments with them coming for the month of April. We got plenty to roll out, so be on the lookout for them. Some are Mets related, some are baseball as a whole. Did plenty of content with them over the past week. Have another segment with them actually tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So be on the lookout right around 11 a.m. Eastern, covering an MLB daily topic for baseball as a whole. So I hope to see you all there in the Bleacher Report app. Thank you all again for watching. Love you guys to death. Let's go Mets, baby. Happy opening day, and I'll see you all again real soon. Peace out, folks. I'm shout out my man Keith Diaz chiming in just as we're wrapping these up. Sorry, brother. Love you, Keith. We'll talk again real soon.